Okay, welcome everybody. Great to be with you again today. And as always, we move from one moment in eternity to another, even though there's 2 weeks in between. We seem to always be at the same place every time we get together, which is fine by me. And life goes on, things happen, world events drive us crazy, and family and friends keep us happy. That's the way things go. So, welcome all, and I hope you're ready to plunge into a projection and see what you can see and do what you can do. And wishing you all well on today's journey. And let us relax into the moment. Let us sit back or lie back, whatever appeals to you, and slow your breathing. Let's calm down a little bit. Let us feel ourselves in the moment, this eternal moment. Let us forget the recent past and let us put aside the presence of the near future. Yesterday and tomorrow, we can just let them go. Let us be here now. And as you relax, feel that astral body rising up out of the physical. Feel it as it moves up through the room that you are in, through the ceiling, up through the second floor if you have one, up through other apartments and condos if you're beneath them. Move on up to the roof of the building you are in and go beyond it. Now you are out above the roofs of your community or the trees of your rural atmosphere. You're above it. You're above all that, looking down, enjoying the view. Once you've settled into that, allow yourself to be influenced by your desire and ambition to explore. Explore whatever of the many realms of the afterlife that there are. Feel yourself attracted to one or another, or allow your guides to give you a little shift in one direction or another. You can retrieve, you can rescue, you can contact, you can interact. It's all good. It's all exploration. It's all expansion of consciousness. And as you move off, I wish you well and have some fun. And I'll talk to you again in 15 or so minutes.
Hey, Gordon, when you're ready, come on back.
Oh, okay. Thanks, David.
Hmm.
Hmm. Well, friends, I hope you've had an interesting experience and are ready to explain it to yourself or tell us about it. I had one myself. We'll get to that later. And is everyone ready, David, do you think?
Let's see.
I can wait a bit.
No, I think we're ready to go. Yes. Okay.
Hmm. Cool.
And Christine Brooks is here now. Thanks for coming in, Christine.
Thanks for letting me in. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Christine.
Hi, Gordon. Hi.
Did you have an interesting experience?
Um, I have I live near a river, and I knew that you were facilitating and assisting, and so I just imagined myself by the river. About 3 months ago, a young man lost his life nearby here, and so I was just, presenting a beacon of light. And I had two stones in my hand. I have a quartz and a kyanite. And the kyanite, so I was holding those, and I felt a lightness, and then I decided to put them down. And when
Hmm.
I did, everything just kind of closed up. So thought that was very interesting. But as far as initializing the contact with the young man, I don't believe that I did, but the experience was wonderful, and thank you.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe you'll meet him next time. If he's still around, I think he might be.
Yeah, thanks, Christine.
Thank you.
Gordon, you're usually last. Would you like to go?
Oh, all right then. A guide suggested, I said, I was wondering what to do. And the guide said, oh, yeah, we've got some people in Ukraine that need retrieved. There seemed to be about 8 to 10 people that had been, I don't know, not retrieved from a missile attack somewhere. Uh, Not necessarily yesterday or the day before, a few days ago. And I couldn't quite tell what their state of mind was. A little angry, um, a little, they've survived a long period and then they finally uh, got caught in the crossfire, as it were. And it seemed to be, they didn't want to move on at first. And, they didn't trust me and who was I and what did I want with them. And, you know, um, and there seemed to be, and I'm not sure why, I couldn't quite get the answer to this, but there seemed to be a couple of Russian servicemen dead with them. Now, how they got there, I'm not sure. I think they had been killed nearby in a separate sort of interaction with the Ukrainian troops and were just sort of wandering around, wondering what to do, and met up with these Ukrainian, I believe, civilians that had been killed in a missile attack. And so there was a certain tension between the two groups. And two Russian guys were kind of standing off to the side. And I think that's maybe why I'd been pulled over by a guide saying, "Come on, we've got something for you." And the tension had created a difficult vibratory atmosphere. So, a lot of the, usual, can we trust you? Where are you going to take us? Is it going to be our heaven or their heaven? So there's this whole our heaven, their heaven. And I'm assuming that's Catholic versus, whatever, communist heaven. I don't, you know, it's the same when you go to Gaza. There's our heaven and their heaven. Everyone's got their little thing that they want to do and place they want to go to. So you have to kind of reassure them that they're they're going to be safe and well and happy and not inducted into some foreign heaven where they're not welcome. Although that's a fairly strange concept, but people do actually believe that sort of thing. And so a fair bit of chattering and me trying to convince them and sort of trying to act like a swell guy with no hidden agenda, you know. And eventually I got them to move on. And they sort of went to this reception center again as a group with about 8 of them, and then the 2 Russian guys off to the side, sort of not wanting to create any more tension than was necessary. And you know, the people at the reception center, they know how to deal with that. So I just let it go at that. And then we still, that was fairly, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. And then I remembered how I'd been asked to just float around the sort of psychic atmosphere of my small town here and see if I could gather up people that had recently died of natural causes and were still floating around. Maybe remember I talked about that some weeks ago, and it was made quite funny because I was told by a guide, oh, you know, just give them an energy boost, like almost like a flash of lightning, and that will move them up a level to the afterlife level from this sort of misty, you know, in between land where they're just sort of floating, not knowing what to do or not even really aware. And you might remember, there seemed to be about 10 or 12 of them, but 2 or 3 people said, or I felt their telepathy saying, no, not us, we're just having afternoon naps. So that was kind of funny way back then. So I remembered that and was doing this today. And there seemed to be about, I don't know, 5, 6 souls floating around. And I did this exercise that the guides had shown me before, and it was kind of their idea, not really mine. You just sort of, it's almost like a flash of lightning, but not like destructive lightning, but a flash, you know. And it seems to be able to, it's an experiment in a sudden movement thing. You take these people that are kind of floating around, deceased, but not really knowing that they're deceased, perhaps because they're aged, perhaps because they've got Alzheimer's, you know, that sort of a thing, a little bit dopey with drugs, whatever. And it moves them up to the next level where they can be more easily retrieved. So that's what I did.
Mhm.
And it seemed to work out okay. And like I say, it's the guides are asking you, okay, do this thing and then we'll do the rest. So that's kind of what happened, and similar to a few weeks ago. And I hadn't really thought about it in the interim, but it seems to be perhaps it's something one does when one's asleep and then you forget about it. But that's what happened today. And then David said it's time to come back, Gord. So here we are.
So when you talk about the location of this last thing that you talked about, are you talking about
Yeah.
where you live then? In Oakville?
Yes, right over Oakville. Like I've said before, David, it's a small town
Mm-hmm.
and it's surrounded by the lake on one side, as you know, and then lots of suburbs to the north. And if you just focus and in the downtown area, I call it downtown. Don't imagine a big city, just the older part of town, 150 years old, mixture of residential, and we've got quite a few residences for seniors, you know. And as you can imagine, people are passing out from there quite regularly, and just because of their aging, and you know, it's time for them to go, as well as whatever, you know, car
Mm-hmm.
accidents, you know, drug overdoses that are so common they don't even make the local paper, you know, that sort of a thing. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not referencing the huge Toronto city, just
Yeah.
to my east. That's another whole story.
And then these reception areas, you've talked about that in a bunch of these. Is it
Yeah,
do
yeah.
they always look the same, or are they different every time? What do they look like?
They're culturally appropriate. If people are expecting a refugee camp, a lot of the Gazans expect a sort of a refugee camp because where they were living was so bombed out. It was almost, you know, some of them had been living in refugee camps before the war started. So the guides are the people that set this up. They're very good at setting something up that makes people comfortable. You know, whether it's religious,
Yeah.
imagery, cultural stuff, images of, these big tented refugee camps that you might see on the news anywhere, Africa, anywhere, all well organized and people bustling about cooking food, and there's a hospital tent and, all this kind of stuff. Very well organized so that when people see it, they go, we're here,
Hmm.
we're away from the war, sort of thing. And then others more urban atmospheres, they tend to be more urban. The one when there was the terrorist attack in Russia that I did live way last year or something, it was
Hmm.
very sort of modern and urban. And it was all set up for these young people that had been to this big rock concert. So, I mean, they're very good at that. They set these things up so that people go, oh, yeah, here we are. This is it. Cool. And because it's all mental, it's all done very quickly. And I find that I'm always kind of impressed with how well they do these things. It's not me that does them. I'm just the guy that takes them there.
Yeah. Very good. Larice, did you go ahead? Unmute yourself.
Okay. Today, Dorothea was there for a minute and she said, today I'm going to leave you on your own just for practice. Because she's been working with me. And I asked her about that because some of the stuff we have done in the recent past has been really complicated. And she said, when you first met me, you felt like you had to hide your interest in this kind of stuff. And I understand why. But she said, I just worked with you when you were asleep and I didn't worry about that. And, because I knew it was your will to do that, but you just felt like you had to hide it. So and she said, that's why it's like that now. So that explained that. So anyway, she left me on my own today and I kind of drifted around and I ended up in a small church and it was falling apart. I mean, the building was falling apart. And there were some people in there. They were having like a committee meeting and they were talking about how it was just getting almost impossible to maintain it because not only the building was falling apart, but the members were getting sick and they didn't have any more energy and they just they wanted to soldier on, but they just couldn't do it anymore. And they didn't know what to do because they wanted to stay faithful, but they just, they didn't know what to do. So I said, well, maybe you could merge with another church because a lot of times, a couple of small ones do really good when they get together if you can cooperate with whoever. And some people said, well, we've already done that several times. And I said, well, did it work very well? And they said, well, yeah, actually it did for a while until we started losing people again and we got older and we this and that. Everybody there was older and infirmed. Like nobody was in good shape. Nobody had any energy. I didn't see any children. It was all, people that had been doing this all their life. And so I asked them where we were. And I started up something maybe I shouldn't have because they told me where they thought we were, but they said different things. Like the ones that had gathered there thought they were in different places. And so that started up something that, because they didn't seem to have any awareness that they were dead. So after I did that, I said, don't worry about that. Because what I really came to do was ask you guys if you wanted to go to this place where you could merge with another church and it would be much easier to function than it is here because you don't have much left in terms of your building, in terms of your the people who serve, in terms of anything. Because there might have been, well, I don't know, there was only 2 or 3 people on the committee, but there, I saw the picture was, there might have been like 20 people on a Sunday morning or something like that, or even less sometimes. So I said, would you guys be interested in doing that? Because I know where there is one and I can take you to it. And they went back and forth and back and forth and, well, whatever. And then they kind of decided maybe that would be the best thing to do. But they really did wonder who I was and why I was there and all that kind of stuff. And well, I said that when a church wants to merge with another one because they need the support and the help and everything, they send out these recruiters. I said, I'm one of those. So I was looking for you guys, and they went, oh, okay. So I gathered them all up, and it took me a while to get that to happen because we had to call all of the members that were, wherever they were, and get them all together. And then they were saying, well, there's a couple people who, used to come and they don't anymore, and we don't know what happened to them, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I'll go back and look for those people later. All of you come with me, but I will go back and make sure nobody got left behind. So we all went to the reception area, and they had it all set up for us and everything. And there were people that made them feel comfortable, greeting them and meeting them and saying, oh, we're glad you came. And we have this certain thing that we need to be done, but we don't have the personnel, or we don't have and there was healing too. There was places like clinics where people could go to, everything was set up for them. So then I just dropped them off, and there were a couple of people's relatives that really, really wanted to see him, but they were being held back just a little bit because we never discussed whether, that they were dead. That never even came into our discussion. So I left that with the people, the reception people, because I didn't want to deal with it, since that didn't seem to be what they wanted to talk about, or it would just complicate the issue here. So I just, they can sort it all out. I just made sure they got there.
That's really quite interesting, because Gordon just talked about, he takes them to the reception area, and today you took them to a church that was kind of like that. That's an afterlife church.
Yeah.
And get them to move on that way by merging.
Yeah. Because they, they'll get it all figured out because, those people in the reception, they know how to ease them from one state to the next, in a better way than I would have been able to. It would have taken me longer if I would have said, you guys are dead, because they didn't have that concept, but they were just running out of every kind of energy imaginable.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty also interesting that you had the insight of what you just said. Don't push it too much, just let it happen.
Yeah.
Put them together and let it happen. Yeah.
Wow,
I like that.
I like the way you when they asked you about other churches, and you said, oh, well, they send out recruiters. That's people like me. I just love the use of your word recruiter.
I don't know. That just came out. It was like, of course,
Yeah.
they want to know who I am and what the heck am I doing there and everything. And that just was there. It was probably given to me by somebody, or, but yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Denise, go ahead and unmute. And now you got the floor.
Okay. Hopefully I tried to summarize it. Okay. It started off, it was interesting this time, Gordon. When you said, to go above, all of a sudden I look and there was an elevator sitting there. And at first I'm staring at the elevator for a second. I'm like, why is there an elevator here? And I'm like, okay. So then I turned into light. So as I approached the elevator and got in the elevator, my light turned purple. And as I started to rise, I went to a white and then a copper. And when I got at the copper, there was this long pause. And then I saw a copper teapot on a stove. And then that copper, when I was looking at the copper kettle, I saw then a teacup. Then I start hearing in my head, I don't want to sing it, but it says, I'm a little teacup, short, stout.
Yes.
Here. Yeah. So this is a song from my childhood. And
Yeah.
as the song starts playing, I'm seeing a little girl, but she was doing the itsy bitsy spider, even though the teapot was playing in my head. Then all of a sudden, I see a canister of milk and a canister of cream. And then I see a man bent over, like back in the days, like, I'm from the 60s, your milk came in, there was a milkman and he delivered crates and your milk came that way. And he delivered the bottles and he picked them up, not long into it. That was only like a couple of years. And then, it came grocery stores or whatever. So, and then this kind of eerie feeling set in. And I'm like, oh, because first I'm like, what's going on? And then to make the long story of it short, there is a gentleman named Harold Washington, who was this little girl was murdered and went missing. And Harold Washington was accused of her murder, and he didn't do it. I know this is an old cliche, but the milkman did do it. You know what I mean? I don't mean to laugh, but it's such a cliche, right? So anyway, and it was Harold's had an energy, but then this scene I was seeing had a different energy. So I thought that was interesting. And what was happening is Harold was trapped here because he wanted justice. He got blamed. And you know what I mean? He never saw justice. And I'm actually going through something right now. And I used my logic with that in natural law and karma. And that when he gets to the other side, he's going to see his life review, and that it manifests in so many different things, whatever. I get him to what I think cross over, but I'm not sure, because then, you go and you doubt yourself. Right. And then I hear, and then I'm like, well, wait, are you still here, Harold? And then I hear out of my left, I hear a man's voice say, Harold's gone. I'm here. Then I hear Gordon say, it's time to come back. And the impression when I first got it is that the energy that said, Harold's gone, I'm here, was the murderer. That's what my impression was. And then as I was sitting here and you guys were talking, and I said, well, let me see, what was your name? And he said, Jerry. And then he said, Jerry Jacks. And I'm like, no, Jerry Jacks that's a soap opera character on General Hospital. But Jerry Jacks is actually the brother of Jasper Jacks, and he was a murderer. So that just was evidence for me that was the murderer who said that, because they related it to a murderer that I know. So it was cool, because it was kind of it was a retrieval, but then it was a lesson for me how I was able to use the experience I just went through to help him, which is kind of what they say, it's all about. You're supposed to share your experiences because, they help other people. So that was a combination, a lesson and a retrieval. So hopefully I did it. Oh, and I'm going to look it up too, because I also helped Mississippi. So I think this incident happened in Mississippi, and sometimes I'm able to actually track it down. So we'll see. I get, but I'm going to try. So I'm done. Thank you.
Wow. So Jerry was the milkman, right?
What's that?
Was Jerry the milkman?
Jerry, right. Jerry was the milkman, and he was the murderer. But Harold got charged. Harold was African American.
Yeah. And
he got charged. And Jerry was in my image, you know what I mean? Harold was African and Jerry was yeah. So yeah. And like I said, I know it's cliche, but we know that that happened. Oh, and then so when he came in with that, and I was like, why did he bring it in? So this is why, and this is where he came in, is he's the one who brought me to Harold, because of my experience was picked up in my energy, and he's the one who brought me to help Harold.
By he you mean the milkman, Jerry?
Yeah, Jerry. Yeah, the murderer. Right, yeah. Right. Yeah. He's the one who, you know what I mean? Because, like how I don't know, vibrations and frequencies, and they line up. And I've had that happen before when that Frank Carpenter guy came in. You know what I mean? There was an experience I went through that when I was able to track him down, there was an experience that he went through. So they, experiences carry a vibration, and they're like a magnet, you know what I mean? Like a magnet, you know what I mean? Is my kind of concept or understand, but that's just, that's just me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Consult your family physician on everything. Not Denise.
That was pretty detailed too. A lot of stuff happened in that.
Yeah.
What do you think it was? Do you have any idea when you were in the elevator, like why the lights kept changing, or it started out one color and then it was?
Yes. Well, me in that moment, I was relating it to the chakras, because you know what I mean? Like your seventh chakra is your crown chakra. And then the next one is your star, which is white. And then I heard copper, you know what I mean? And I know copper is related to Archangel Raphael, you know what I mean, which is an angelic realm. So, and I think that's why I paused on copper, because when I the copper, I was like, ooh, you know what I mean? It just felt different. And then, like I said, and then, I was like, and then we jumped into the tea kettle and the teapot and the song, and, it's just incredible, right? I mean, the steps that they go, you know what I mean? But it tied a story together, and it all logically tied together and made sense. You can't make that up, right?
Right.
The step to the milk, to the cream, to this and that. And so it'll be interesting if I could trace the story down, because I have traced a couple of the retrievals down. So we'll see. But it was it was interesting. But too, I'm in Eric Heisman's channeling, and they're talking about the 369, and there's like a ninth thing. And I had an experience where my father came in. We were doing a Palladian experience, and I ran into a Palladian, but the Palladian, I saw him, and this guy, and it's like one eye, and then the one eye got bigger, and behind this eye was my father's face, and then it closed up, almost like, like it comes in like a circle and out like a circle. And as we were coming out of the meditation, I heard, meet me on the ninth floor, meet me on the ninth floor. And that kept lingering. So I did Cheryl Page's Geometrics on that, meet me on the ninth floor. Don't quote me, because I don't have it written down. And this just happened, so I don't have it memorized. But it had something to do with the Palladians. So that was the first thing that crossed in my mind. And I know that was kind of a long version of it when you said, why the elevator, why the colors? And that's why I paused at the elevator. I'm like, well, wait, is this like, meet me on the ninth floor? Is this type? You know what I mean? And that's went in. But then I felt light, and kind of like I was floating light. Then when I was thinking, I was getting in my head, you know what I mean? And got out of my head and into my heart, because my head was thinking, oh, is this meet me on the ninth floor? Next thing you know, I was light. And as I got to the elevator, purple, and then went to the colors. So I think at that point I was leaving more of the 3D behind, and, and in the 5D, the experience of it, because I was like letting go, you know what I mean? Letting go what I knew, and was, just open to what was immediately happening, and following it, something like that, I guess. I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, thank you for presenting that. That was really good.
Yeah, thanks. That was great.
Margaret, unmute and you can talk now.
Okay. First of all, I'd just like to say, you might remember this, David, at our last meeting with George Lockett, that he said, if you see any purple colors, that means that you're connecting with spirit.
Yes.
The source or whatever. So Denise was connecting with spirit when she hit the purple color, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you too, Marge, too, and with the crown chakra. That's what I thought. Like, the purple, it was like, ooh, it's a spirit elevator, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
In it, you get purple. And the color of spirit, I've heard, as you go to the higher realms, the color changes. So, that all, but then when you are taught that knowledge, you want to make sure that it's not your ego follow, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
in that experience that, you know what I mean? It felt natural, you know what I mean? It felt you know what I mean? It felt like a natural experience. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very good.
Did you have an experience today, Margaret?
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. Okay. For all of you Reiki people there, if there are any Reiki people there, there is this thing called Pendragon Reiki. It's a real thing. So just so you know, I work with dragons as well. Dragons actually are elementals. They work very closely with the fairies, and they work with the archangels as well. So this might sound a little weird, but anyway, before this started, I asked my dragons for assistance in this, and I had a white dragon come in, and we both flew up through the roof and through the clouds, and he did a circle 8, which is the infinity circle around another person and myself. This fellow his name was Jose Alvarez. He was part Mexican, part indigenous. He was in his 40s, black hair, quite nice looking. He was wearing a plaid red and black shirt and a white t-shirt underneath it with some brown pants, boots, of course, and spurs. So I came to the conclusion that he must have been a rodeo rider, and sure enough, he did. He was riding a pinto horse in a rodeo. I don't know, it could have been near Tucson or something. It was an event. I didn't really catch the place where this happened. I just saw him on this pinto horse. Anyway, it threw him, and then it trampled him to death. And he suddenly was in the clouds and didn't know where he was. He was very confused. So when he saw me, he said, "Who are you?" And I just said, "Oh, I'm here to help you." That's basically all I said. I said, "You have passed." And he, of course, looked very confused and said, "But I didn't feel any pain." And I said, "That's because your soul pulled you out of your body before you felt any further pain." And he looked, again, very confused. So I said, "Come with me, and I'll take you to a place where you can get some help." And so we walked to, again, a portal, a white crystal portal with a white angel beside it. And she took his hand to lead him through. And he said, "Will I see you again?" And I said, "No, not for a very, very long time." But he was still dazed. He was confused. He really didn't know where he was, but he was willing to travel. So I thought that was very good of him. And so in the end, I thanked the angel for her assistance, and also this crystal white dragon. That's it.
That's a retrieval.
I know, weird. I know it sounds weird if you don't know anything about dragons. It's like, oh my God, they're so hideous or whatever, but they're not at all. They're actually the opposite of what we think they are. But anyway, worry about that.
I have a dragon named Dragar.
Oh, good.
So dragons don't scare me.
Oh, good. They shouldn't, because they're quite the opposite. They've been vilified a lot, and they work a lot with the archangels as well. So there you go. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Margot.
Thanks,
Margaret.
Mark. That was good.
Yeah. Adrian, what do you have today?
So first I found myself in a garden, and it was a very beautiful garden with edible plants and flowers, and it was very vivid. Like I felt myself there. I saw the flowers, like I get these glimpses. It was all very vivid, but then I questioned myself that what am I doing here? It doesn't seem like a place that's for retrieval. So I got the sense that it's my launching pad for the retrieval. So first calm down, get centered, and then go for the retrieval. So I went for the retrieval, and I found a guy who killed himself because either his wife or fiance I'm not sure, left him, and he couldn't handle that. So maybe it wasn't just leaving him, but maybe the loss was greater than that. But he couldn't handle it and killed himself. So I tried to talk to him. He listened to me, and I asked him to come with me. So we went through a door and to an afterlife reception center. At least that was my intention. And I couldn't see quite clearly what the environment, but I could sense that there are people around me. So I asked him to talk to the receptionist, and he did. So I was really intent, like I almost gave it to him like an order that snap out of this and please talk to it, at least for a little. And that seemed to work. That was enough for the transitioning to start with him. I think I even slapped him before going to the door just to get his attention. But then I apologized and I said, "I'm sorry. You can do the same. Just listen to me, please. Just come with me." But I know it's unconventional, but it worked. Okay, so then was time for another retrieval. So I tried the other thing that I experiment with, which is I send a version of me to do the retrieval, which without me being aware of what he's doing. Like I'm quite confident that I can do this. And some things happened that recently that made this notion even stronger with me. So I just set the intention for it and I go into a meditation. And my meditation kind of feeds this version of me, and it can just go and do its thing without interference of my conscious awareness. I got a glimpse of the experience, not much information, but I kind of have a connection. Like I'm aware that it's there. I'm aware that it's doing something, but I don't see what it's doing, and I'm feeding this version of me with my meditation. Like I just focus, and it's doing its thing. And on one hand, it has a disadvantage that I don't have much to report on, because it's doing its stuff without me seeing what it's doing. But on the other hand, it can operate without my bias. Like it's not limited but what I think, what I believe, how I label, or how I associate from what I see. And I get the sense when it's enough, then I just stop. So now I do both. Like I do both the version when I'm going myself, and I'm also doing the version when I send a version of me without interference from me.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I explained it in a way that's you can understand what I'm saying.
For sure. I'm glad you're exploring those two modalities. That's very good. I'm very happy to hear that.
Thank you. This time it was really strong. The second kind, like it was palpable. Like even though I didn't have much sight or any information, but at least I could feel that it's there doing its thing.
Excellent. Well, I hope you explore that more, Adrian. That'd be great.
Yeah, well, I hope that with time it will I get more glimpses of what I'm doing.
Oh, I think you will. Yes, I'm pretty sure you will. A little bit of practice.
And also regarding the elevator, I have some recurring dream themes. I catalog three. I have three recurring dream themes, and one of them is the elevator. I'm not sure what's the significance of it, but elevator appears quite often.
Well, I
It,
find all images of transport in dreams, lucid dreams, or remembered projections are actually your brain putting a form around your projection. It can be a car, it can be a yacht, it can be a helicopter, and also elevators. I've come across this before with clients over the years. You're moving up levels, and your brain puts the image of an elevator because it knows that and it understands it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're just moving up vibratory levels when you're on an elevator.
Adrian.
Yeah, that's my sense. Yeah, that it's movement between different level of consciousness or different levels of my subconscious, maybe also.
That could be too, yes.
Adrian, if you ever get a chance on Mondays, every other Monday is a dream group, and that's all we do is interpret dreams, like you just said, and symbols and that kind of stuff. So come join us sometime. It's in the GG. Not
Okay,
the GG.
I will
It's in the
check.
Friday. Yeah, for the
Yeah,
dream group.
I checked some of the groups, but most of them is when I'm sleeping.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. You're exactly right. Okay. Thank you, Adrian.
Thanks for listening.
Sure. I think I'm going to give mine now, and mine involves it's the death of a child. So I won't go into much detail about it. The good thing is that the angels took him immediately. He didn't feel anything at all, and it was an accident. And kind of like what you just said, Margaret, with your person that you talked about. I had a lot of visions with this. It started out where I was in it was in the United States, and it was in the fall, and it was on a circle, a cul-de-sac where there's not a lot of traffic, and it was autumn time, and there's maples all over the street, and these maples have these big leaves that fall, and so for about a month the neighbors are raking them up, and they raked piles that were at the curb so that the state or the government could come and pick them up, and what would happen is they would bring these tractors in with baskets, and they'd go into the leaves and get them and then put them into a truck. At the same time, and so what was happening is the next vision I saw is that there was a bunch of kids on the street, anywhere from 5 to 10 years old, and they were playing hide and go seek. And unfortunately, one of these kids got underneath one of the piles that was in the street, and because they were hiding, and this truck came along and took all the leaves and also the kid too. Then the next vision was that the parents, he didn't come home, so they're wondering where he was, and the police were there and all that, and they interviewed the kids and everything, and they found out what had happened, that he was in the pile of leaves. And so, and I saw the truck, and in the truck was a man, because this retrieval is not going to be about this kid. The kid, he didn't feel anything, and he went to heaven right away, and he was happy. And so it's going to be about the driver. That's what the retrieval is about. I got a name for the guy. His name was PJ. The driver, he was in his mid-30s. Just like you, Margaret, you get visions of what they look like. I do too. He was a skinny guy and balding, and he had a black beard that looked like it was about 3 days old. He wasn't shaving, and he had no idea what he was doing. But then he he was called into the supervisor's office and they told him. And he had so much grief that he just spiraled down. He was already drinking a little bit. He was married, and but it just went worse and worse. And then I saw a vision of some IV use of drugs, and then there was a breakup with his wife, and then there was a big lawsuit against him. So there was just too much. With the grief and all the pressure that was going on, he did not kill himself. He died of cirrhosis of the liver. And so now the next vision, he passed with the cirrhosis, and he was in the afterlife, but he didn't pass all the way. He was stuck. And so he went to an afterlife hospital with a lot of counseling and a couple characters there was more detail to this, but I don't need to say any more about that. But he was ready. And so when I saw him, he came for the final vision. It was a little boy. He had made himself the same age as the little boy that was in the leaves. And this PJ guy he made himself look like he was about 5, and he was holding the hand of this older lady, like a grandmother type, that had a flower dress on, and they were very happy. I'm not sure who it was. It could have been his grandmother or just some lady, kindergarten teacher or whatever. And they went into the light and they passed over. So ultimately, the little boy was fine, and the poor guy that helped with the demise of the little kid, that guy was fine too. They all made it. So that was what I saw.
Thank you. Interesting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mm-hmm. Julia, do you have anything that you'd like to say today?
No, that was really beautiful, moving story, Dave. Thank you. That was really lovely. Everyone was very interesting. No, I couldn't settle my mind actually. I tried to visualize I was climbing up a massive tree and stepping off somewhere, but I couldn't quite get there. I did manage to finish Gordon's Moving Through Many Dimensions in the last few days, having been dipping into it for a year, and I found it was absolutely stunning. Thank you, Gordon. And of course, the conclusion was more or less about the higher self, which is what he's going to be talking about on Sunday. I love the line. I think it was something like we're just holographic projections here of our higher self. I found that very intriguing. I can accept that, but yeah, it's very. I personally find it very difficult to step away from everyday life at the moment. But thank you all so much for your brilliant stories, very moving, very intriguing, and I appreciate each and every one of them. Thank you.
Well, Julia, I just want to tell you, and I think I've told you this before, with me it goes up and down. Sometimes, like, I'll just tell you, the one that I just gave everybody here, that was from last time, that I kept it. And during the week, I went back again and I talked to them. But then today, I just couldn't concentrate. I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get anything really coming out. And so don't worry about it. It goes up and down. I'm sure it happens to everybody.
Yeah, it does. And I'm glad you're benefiting from the memoir, Julia. That's great. It's a
Oh,
big
it's
book and
brilliant,
there's a lot.
brilliant. Thank you, Gordon. Actually, I'll ask you a question. I was prompted by Denise's story, actually. I was wondering whether you're ever able to project, as some psychics are, to solve crimes. I mean, we've got an infamous case here in the UK, which has resurfaced again. You may have heard it, a little girl named Madeleine McCann who went missing some 18 years ago now. They never found her. They're still looking for whatever they may find in Portugal. I wondered if you're ever able to project in cases like that to ascertain whether or not the missing person is indeed deceased, or if they are something else happened? Are you ever able to do that, or is that outside your area, really?
I've actually never tried, but
Yeah, both of you. Yeah.
yeah, when there was somebody who went missing, I forget who it was. Somebody had reached out to me and I didn't get the message till after the fact. A group of people were going to get together and try and like remote view, you know what I mean? And I missed that opportunity. And I think they actually ended up not even doing it or something, but I thought that would have been a fabulous opportunity to, you know what I mean? To just, to try something like that. What's ironic is I have a girlfriend who's an ex-cop who's a medium. She was in my same psych class. And that's what I've been encouraging her to do. That once came in a reading for her. And I said to her, I think that would be so cool. I said, I would love to do that. I said, I've quite a few times in my life, I've had people say to me, you would make a great detective, or, you would make a great lawyer. You have a great memory, a detailed person, or, or whatever have you. So it is something, and you never know, right? Put it out there. But that is something that I think that I would definitely find fulfillment in doing. I think that would be very fulfilling work, especially if it ends with success, right? How could it not be? Yeah. But, and that's interesting that you brought it up. Maybe it's something I'm supposed to start thinking about. Who knows, right, Julia?
Yes, thank you. I mean, the case I mentioned, I don't know how well it's been publicized in the US, but I mean, dreadful. I mean, the parents have been left for 18 years now. I think nobody's been found, nobody's confessed to the crime, so they're clinging on to the hope she might still be alive, as she be in her early 20s now. And I've lost a child, but at least I know what happened to him. And even I can't imagine the hell they must have gone through all these years. And I think that would be, even if they could, a psychic person could somehow lead them to the remains now, that would be something, wouldn't it? It would be some sort of closure, rather than clinging to a vain hope that she's still alive. But yeah, interesting. Thank you.
And I understand that, but I'm under the belief, like, if that's how they, if that was an alley for them, they would have been guided to that. And I only say this because I have a first cousin who, and I don't like to use the word homeless, because I don't think there is such a thing as homeless people. I think they're choices that we make, and you know what I mean? And they're not really homeless. But he left the family, went on to become homeless. And his father and his mother died of breast cancer, but his father and younger brother are left behind, and they have never gotten over that he disappeared as homeless, and they think he's alive. But I actually had the medium Kevin Lee come in like November of 2021. He passed. And I wanted to go to it, and he passed in Atlanta, not too far from where they lived. You know what I mean? They called it the urban jungle, and I wanted to go there and go to the different ones and find the pictures and bring it to them. But the Roman Catholic, it's not a concept that they would welcome. So I had to let it go. But I know that there are people that do that, and it's usually that people come to them and look for it. And yeah, how, rewarding. I'm surprised these people haven't tried, they haven't tried something like that, for sure.
Thank you, Denise. I can sense that you're really quite attracted, magnetized to that situation. And I would certainly encourage you to follow your ambition on that. I think you would be quite good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I just always have the issue as if it's welcome. You know what I mean? Not everybody, if everybody's listening, but are they, you know what I mean? But are they hearing? That's difficult. But thank you, Gordon. Yeah, that's certainly something I would like to absolutely consider.
And Julia, I made some experiments of that some years ago with cases that you'd see in the media, kidnappings and whatnot. And I was just not talented in that direction. I couldn't. I think the person was kidnapped and taken to a certain area, and then they'd be found thousands of miles away in the other direction. So I thought, okay, not my cup of tea. So, I gave that up. And because
Well,
there's other
don't worry.
psychics that are quite good at it.
That's obviously not destined to be your speciality. You were put into this life to do the retrievals as you so expertly do. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for asking. But like I said, I did try a few years ago. I thought, well, that'd be interesting. And I just followed things in the newspaper and thought, I wonder where that person's been taken. And I'd be dead wrong. I'd be so off base, it would be laughable.
And Gordon, at the end of the day, foundationally, isn't that really pretty much remote viewing?
You could say that, yeah. It's
It's
another, remote.
similar basics. You know what I mean? Similar. I know one time I did a remote viewing, and I remote viewed into the theater where Abraham Lincoln assassinated. That was amazing. Yeah, that was cool.
I bet.
Yeah.
I have tried remote viewing too, just a little experiment a few times. And in the controlled remote viewing where you don't know what the target is, so you just get the coordinate. And I can tell that it works, remote viewing works, and I think most people could do it. So if someone wants to be really good at it, then it takes lots of practice. But for the purpose of proving that someone can do it, it's quite simple. Like after 15 minutes, it's quite obvious that it works. And I even made a shorter version of it just to prove a point. And I even taught it to some people, and they were able to remote view it too, like do these small sketches, and it was very eerie. It's like exactly a portion of it was exactly like the target picture. So
I think that works best in like big group settings, because like in the remote viewing exercises that I was involved in, there was like, anywhere from 10 to 20 of us. And it's kind of like everybody had a piece of the puzzle. So it's like, this information, but, it's like everything, all, you know what I mean? It was really, really, just kind of how when they bring stuff in a reading, when they bring stuff in as a puzzle piece, everybody had their own puzzle pieces, and then they all tied together what was in the envelope, which was just, it's fantastical, as I like to say, fantastical.
Yeah. For me, it was quite shocking. Like it's one thing to conceptually understand that yes, remote viewing is something that can work, but when I did it myself and I saw that this is matching, it was like it has a big impact on me. Like it transformed how I view reality.
Thanks for that, Adrian. I didn't realize you'd been experimenting that way.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much. Like it's really just like in one book, and in half an hour you can doing it.
Really, excellent.
I had kind of a related experience. I had here where I live, there was a child murdered about 20 or 25 years ago, and they didn't ever catch the murderer. And I have a local friend who was watching they were kind of looking back over it and all that stuff and going over everything. And she said that the child, Amber, that's how they created Amber Alerts. It was this little girl. She came to my friend Linda and started to tell her story over and over again. And Linda didn't know what to do. So she asked me, and I said, well, she didn't cross. So we need to cross her. And so we, I let her tell it to me once, and then we started talking to her about, letting go of all that stuff and crossing over. And she was, afraid, and she didn't want to leave her mother. And that was one of the issues that Linda had. She said, like, the family is still acting like it happened yesterday. They can't detach. They can't let go. They can't, move on. And even the policeman that was involved in it, all these people are like stuck. And so we called for someone to come from the spirit world that Amber could trust. And it turned out to be an angel. And so she was fine with that when she saw the angel. And we had to talk to her about letting go of her mom. And we said, later you can come back and visit her, but you have to go over there first and get everything taken care of before you can do that. It's not like you'll never see her again, but you have to do this first. And so she finally agreed to let go of her mother. So if she knew she would see her again. And, she was this little girl about 8 or 9 years old. And she was like, she's like, I'm hungry, because she got killed right before supper time when they called she and her brother in. So she's like, will there be something to eat over there? And will there be this and that? And so we reassured her. And then, the angel came and took her. So we were hoping that this would kind of sever the bonds between them and all that, everybody, the cop and her family that were hanging on to her so tight that they couldn't move on with their lives. And then we had this whole thing going on with the murderer. We found him. We found out who it was and where he was. Now, this isn't anything we could report to anyone. We didn't go that far, but we just wanted to know. So we asked him. So we traced him, and we found out that he's like a serial killer, and he had been picked up for something else. So he was already incarcerated, and he was really in pretty bad shape. So that's another story I won't go into today. But anyway, that's been my experience with that sort of thing. It wasn't exactly the same because they knew she'd been killed, but so we weren't looking for her, but she came to us, and she came to my friend and didn't know, kept telling her story over and over again.
Well, what do you say, folks? Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, if everyone feels
Yeah.
like it. And wants
Yeah.
to get anything else?
Sure.
Did you want to remind anyone that came in late that Gordon's at the Global on Sunday?
Yeah. That's
Yes,
right.
that's right. I'm giving a talk on higher self and the individual and the relationship between.
Is it up somewhere?
It'll be on Sunday, and they'll record it, and Wendy will put it up on her site a few days later.
So it's going to be Sunday.
Yeah, it might be
Yes.
quite late for you, Adrian. It's going to be 10 p.m. for Stanley and me. I'm not sure if you're an hour or 2 hours ahead of the UK, but it will be late for you, unfortunately, but you'd be most
see.
welcome if you could come along. I
Yeah.
have seen you there once or twice.
So it's 10 p.m. English time?
10 p.m. London time, yes. Are you 1 hour ahead or 2 hours ahead of the
So yeah,
UK?
then it's 11 p.m. my time.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be then. I know there's a lady from Vienna that comes. It's 11 p.m. for her at the moment. It's better for us
Okay.
in the winter because it moves earlier because of the discrepancy between our time and Sydney time. It's always 7 a.m. Monday morning Sydney time, you see, so it varies. But currently it'd be 11 p.m. for you then.
Okay, I will see. I will try to come.
Yeah.
So our next meeting is going to be June 18th, and you'll be getting an email, and it'll be in the GG. And I'd like to give a shout out to Stanley for taping this for us.
Thanks, Stanley.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Stanley.
We appreciate you, Stanley.
Mm-hmm.